Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Your Mark on the World show. I'm Devin Thorpe, and today our guest is Arthur Woods, the co-founder and chief operating officer of Imperative, a social network that hopes to replace LinkedIn with something that is far more purpose-driven. Arthur, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Devin. I really appreciate it.
Well, it's exciting to visit with you, and I had the opportunity of visiting with your partner, Aaron Hurst, earlier today, and remarkable project that you guys are undertaking. Why don't you tell us, just for the audience that didn't hear Aaron this morning, tell us what Imperative is. Give us a sense of that.
Absolutely, Devin. Thanks. Well, the first thing is, the nature of work is changing as we know it. People are staying in their jobs only for 2 years. Millennials are about to become the majority of the workforce in 10 years. They'll be 75% of the workforce. And the idea of the old school way of looking at work, which was that you learn, earn, return. You go to school, you stay in a career or two for decades at a time, and then you retire, is really getting turned on its head. People are wanting to grow, they're wanting to make an impact, and they're wanting to deepen their relationships every single day in their jobs. They're wanting their jobs to be an extension of who they are. And in Imperative, we realized that there was no real professional platform out there that was built around the needs of people managing their careers. There were a lot of platforms out there about creating your online resume, but nothing around self-actualizing, deepening your relationships, and achieving a sense of social impact in everything you do. So we built Imperative, and we're building Imperative to really fill that need.
Well, it is interesting to think about this really global shift toward social mindedness in a broad sense. Just earlier today, I was visiting with David Wilson at Capgemini in Paris, and we were talking about a global survey that Capgemini had funded along with RBC Wealth Management. They'd surveyed wealthy individuals, high net worth individuals around the world, and found a really surprising factor that fully 50% of all respondents felt that social impact was important, and that among millennials, that statistic was 85% felt that it was very or extremely important. So the young people were especially focused on this, and it was really kind of encouraging to me to hear about this shift in the population. But this is really something that I think you and Aaron at Imperative have seen more broadly, isn't it? What are you seeing out there in terms of this trend toward a desire to have more social impact?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the idea of waiting to make an impact, waiting to give back until the end of your career is really getting turned on its head. The idea of only creating impact by volunteering and by charitable donation all of a sudden is not enough. We liken it to the fact that for years we've been given vitamins in terms of our impact. We've been given these sort of supplemental vitamins. Go paint the house, make a donation once a year, maybe attend a gala. But people want that to be core to what they're doing. People are in need of painkillers. And we need to design an experience where the ability to do something greater than yourself is embedded in what you do every day. So we're seeing the same thing, and I think it's getting to it's getting also to a point of returning to local community, local commerce. People wanting to actually be ingrained in what's happening around them, and for that not to be something that's largely exterior to what they're thinking about. So I think every single trend from the sharing economy to what we talked about, the purpose economy, to a more local movement, to a movement of actually starting to remove ourselves from technology for a time and return to human interaction. I think all of these things are representative of the shift that we're making toward more impactful work.
And it's interesting that it is such a global, and although there is an interesting divergence by age, it's really an observable global shift toward this mindfulness of others. And it seems to me very hopeful in that it suggests an opportunity for us as a human population, a global human population, to actually address and solve some big world problems, because the desire to do that seems to be growing to the point of being nearly universal. Do you see that potential for us to really move forward as a human race to solve problems? And how do you see that working with imperative?
I totally do that, Devin, and I appreciate the question because I think it's easy in bleak times where the economy is struggling, where we see these statistics of hunger and low literacy, really not where we would like them to be, giving us a ton of reason to be sort of jaded. And I think when you start to see the urgent need that people are expressing to return to a sense of purpose, to be embedded in something that furthers the state of the world every day, and where people are starting to make tremendous sacrifices to achieve that type of experience. People are taking major pay cuts. They're taking a ton of risk, and they're assuming very unconventional career paths right now to do what they believe in. And I personally see those trends as you do. And I have tremendous hope. I have tremendous hope for the way the world is going. And that really is the manifesto behind our work in Imperative, when Aaron speaks about the purpose economy, which is that we're moving to a new era of business where the creation of value for people will actually be the driver of economic progress. And it's a fairly bold statement, but I think we have so many indicators of that. And to the question of what are we doing to enable that for people on Imperative, for us it starts with self-actualization. It's you need to get to know yourself, what drives purpose for you, what in your day-to-day fulfills you, where do you want to go, what is your authentic identity that you can bring to everything that you do, so that what you are doing.
Arthur, did we lose you? Arthur, did we lose you? I'm afraid we lost you after you mentioned your self-actualization.
And we're just providing.
Arthur, I'm afraid we're losing you. Arthur, are you there?
Oh, okay. Can you hear me okay?
Arthur, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn your camera off so that we can use all your bandwidth to hear you. So fire away. Pick up, if you would, at the beginning of your thought about self-actualization.
Absolutely. Sorry about that. Where did I cut off? And I'll be sure that I'm able to.
Kind of really at the beginning of your thought about self-actualization.
Yeah. So for us, it really starts with understanding yourself at the very beginning of your professional journey. And we see Imperative as being able to be a partner in that first process of getting to know what drives purpose for you, where do you want to go, what have you done in the past that's fulfilled you, and where can you see yourself creating the most impact and creating an alignment between what you're doing and who you are. So we see Imperative as the platform that can enable that shift. And for us, we believe it starts with getting to know yourself.
Well, it's really, I think, important. Where do we go from there? Once you understand yourself, what is the key step in finding your sense of purpose?
Absolutely. So, well, for us, the first step is actually starting to answer questions about yourself around your drivers of purpose. And we've created a diagnostic that actually is about 42 questions that determine the who, the how, and the why of what gives you purpose. The scale at which you work, your view of social progress, and the approach that you take to work to maximize purpose. That puts you into one of 24 different patterns. And what the technology will enable in the coming weeks is actually the ability to start tracking on a day-to-day basis how fulfilled you are and what specifically out of your day gave you purpose. For us, that starts to then become the baseline for the way that you create your professional identity, the way that you seek out new opportunities, and the way that you connect to other people. So we believe that purpose is really the foundation around which we can evolve a new professional platform.
So in Aaron's book, The Purpose Economy, he talks about you. He talks about your experience at Google. And I wonder if you would talk a little bit about that history, that story of going to work at Google and how that shaped your sense of purpose, your desire to have purpose, and how that connects to what you're doing today.
Absolutely. So, for me, the reason I went to Google in the first place, outside of the fact that it was it had an amazing reputation, was that I was very afraid after starting a few socially conscious companies that I wouldn't be successful. I had this fear of failure, and applied to Google very much around this idea of needing to be conventional and needing to really start my career in a conventional way. And when I got to Google, I realized that there was a tremendous need to address the way in which companies and people were interacting, the way that people were relying on their company for everything. And Google is a place where very much people enter and expect the world of the company, and Google delivers, right? Google gives you a lot. But I saw sort of two things happening. One was a false environment created around creative work, quote unquote, becoming what gives everyone purpose, instead of actually, the nature of the work that you're doing itself, not just the environment that you're in, but the role that you're taking on being what most impacts your fulfillment. So I could have been without the Google Bikes and the free lunches and the slides, but if my core job at that company had been more fulfilling and more aligned with what gives me purpose, I likely would have stayed. So that was on the company end. It's not just creating a fun environment that gives people fulfillment. It's actually ensuring that what they do every day, what they're responsible for, the ownership they have in their work, is indeed deep and fulfilling. And the second piece was looking at the fact that so many people complacently relied on the company to fulfill them, and they didn't take their purpose and their fulfillment into their own hands. So a lot of what we're trying to do is empower people with their own sense of agency to control their well-being. And for that not to just be that they're the victim in the passenger seat, but instead they're the ones in the driver's seat. And if you want, the grass isn't greenest on the other side, it's greenest where you water it, right?
Right. Well, it's the growing trend toward purpose is an exciting global trend. We've talked about that, and I appreciate you sharing your personal story of how you've been seeking to find purpose. We're also excited to have you come and speak at the Social Enterprise and Crowdfunding Conference on September 26th. It's really going to be great to have you there. We'll be talking about some of these issues there. What do you expect that you'll be raising and talking about at the conference? Can you give us a little prelude?
Absolutely. A lot of what I'll be talking about at the conference is the way that startups can embrace this for their teams. And there's often a misnomer around the idea that you enter a startup because you're sort of a refugee from a broken system, and at a startup you're going to, at the moment you arrive, just find complete fulfillment. Everyone's cut out for a startup. Everyone's able to be completely fulfilled. However, it's a turbulent environment where you have to be extremely self-aware, and it's easy early on to forget about your core values as a company, where you have to make many, many tough decisions, and you can sort of push off the idea of looking at the impact that you're creating as a company and the purpose you have as a company and the way that translates to the people you're bringing on, instead of really tackling those tough questions ahead of time and being deliberate about them. Because that is the time where you can plant the greatest seeds and make the greatest shifts, when a company is small and agile and you can really be deliberate. So I'm going to talk a lot about the challenges we've seen as a company in facing those questions. What I've seen with a number of companies I've advised or been part of, where they've scaled quickly and struggled later on to sort of retroactively approach those things. And so hopefully that'll be a conducive conversation for that crowd.
I think it absolutely will be a great conversation to lay the groundwork and build the foundation for accomplishing a social mission as you scale and maintaining, creating that culture that will perpetuate and enable that. I think that's a wonderful discussion. The theme of the conference, in fact, this year will be let's scale some good, and the idea is to help everyone who comes to have an opportunity to identify how they can scale the good they're doing, and for a lot of them, I think we'll find that capital is a constraint, and crowdfunding becomes an opportunity to help them achieve scale so that they're actually going beyond opportunities to serve and help in their own community, but in fact take that to a global scale. And I think your remarks will help bring that together very much in terms of building that foundation from the get-go. And certainly it's what you're doing at Imperative, so I really appreciate your coming and sharing your remarks. Now, tell us how people can engage with Imperative today.
Absolutely. So you can go to imperative.com and already take the diagnostic that I spoke to. In the coming weeks, you'll start to see some deeper features, including this pulse that I spoke of. And what I recommend is stay tuned over the coming months. You'll see many new features. You'll start to see the ability to create your own profile. And again, we want this to be the place ultimately where you go to grow and develop and manage your career, the place that you feel is your trusted platform for personal development, and where you feel that you're blending your life inside and outside of work, where that's one cohesive experience that's a reflection of you and what you stand for. So we're excited for that to be a co-creation process. We're still very early. Obviously, it's a very complex challenge to be addressing. We're excited to be co-creating with our community, though, and I'm very excited to see what people think.
Well, fantastic. And today people can go to imperative.com and they can already take a test of sorts, right? An assessment that helps people define their purpose.
Absolutely. That's absolutely right. And put that in your own words with your own personal statement.
Now, well, fantastic. Again, Arthur, I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. We're excited to have you at the conference on September 26th at Snowbird, and really look forward to monitoring your success at Imperative.
Thank you so much, Devin. Really appreciate you having me. This is an honor.
All righty. Let's do some good.